Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the latest live episode of Fauda Talks. I'm Dan Senor. Not sure where you are. If you're on the West Coast, it's the morning. If you're in New York City, it's lunchtime. If you are in Israel, it is dinner time. We've got people from all over the world. We are going to jump into this conversation. This is our series of ongoing conversations that started with Avi Issacharoff and Lior Raz, the co-creators and writers for Fauda, the Fauda series. Lior Raz is also the lead actor who plays the scary, intimidating, psychologically complex Doron in Fauda. Avi Issacharoff is a world-class journalism in the Middle East. These guys juggle a lot of balls. And we are also joined by Marina Maximilian, who's a songwriter and musician in Israel, very well known, and also an actor. We're going to talk a little bit about her career. She plays Hila Bashan in this series in season 3, one of the most interesting characters, the sort of one of the lead players in the Shin Bet, sort of managing the unit that Doron is in this season. And we are also joined by Ala Dakka, who plays Bashar Hamdan, who becomes Doron's frenemy. Starts as being his friend and then becomes his enemy. And we're going to dive into some of that. Now, one piece of housekeeping before we jump into things. We will have time for questions at the end. Feel free to submit your questions along the way. Do it in the Q&A option on your Zoom. I'll be reading them. Last time we did this, we got literally hundreds of questions. We can't get to all of them, but I'll get to as many of them as possible. Secondly, this is obviously live, so keep your questions tight. Let's jump into this conversation. We will try not to do any spoilers. So I got a ton of questions about spoilers before we do this. We are assuming the viewers, the people participating today, have seen about the first 4 episodes of the season, the first half of the season. That's it. We won't ruin the second half. I say that for the questioners in your questions, and I say that for our guests today. I want to start with you, Lior, with something I heard you say the other day. You recently received, I think, an email from someone in an Arab country that does not have diplomatic ties with Israel, and they said to you, once this coronavirus is over, I want to send a plane to you to Israel, pick you up, have you fly here and meet. I'm incredibly moved about Fauda. So I know you get a lot of these kinds of inquiries. First of all, tell us what this contact was about.
I'm getting a lot of messages from all the Arab world, and one of them is someone from a country that I don't have a relationship with officially, and he just asked me to send him something, and I did it, and he asked me to come, and I would love to go there. It's a beautiful country. I would love to be there and visit there. I have my French passport, so it will be okay. And I'm getting people from. We know that people from governments all over in the Arab world are actually watching Fauda. We're getting messages from the Jordanian royal family. We're getting messages from Saudi Arabia. We're getting messages from Abu Dhabi and Dubai. We're getting messages from Kuwait. From Erbil, from Iraq, from everywhere. It's amazing because now, I don't know if you know, but Fauda was still, I think, number 1 in Lebanon on Netflix, number 3 on the UAE Netflix, or 4, top 10 Jordan, number 4 in India. So it's become very global show. People I don't know what happened with its 3rd season, but people watch it. And even the Argentinian president 2 days ago wrote an article. He was interviewed, and he said that he watched Fauda, but also he said that he watched it straight, 12 hours straight. So I don't know what he's doing.
So that person may need a life, because you can just break it up a little bit. Bathroom breaks, snack breaks, but it is very impressive. And I will say this, it's not just that you're developing this amazing audience globally, but I do think viewers feel some sense of connection and intimacy with the characters and the actors. That to me is what is most interesting about this show. It attracts a following with people who aren't just consuming I watch a lot of content. I know a lot of people consume a lot of content, especially these days. They're not actually sending cold emails to the actors and the creators of the show wanting to connect. So there's something deeper going on here that I think is unique to this show. And I want to dive into that as well. Marina, I want to go to you. You have a fascinating background, which I want to get into. But before we get into your background, can you just tell us what your perspective is of the character you play? Who is Hila? What makes her such a captivating character on the screen in the series, in this season?
So the guys here wrote a wonderful female role, which is rarely something you meet as a woman. And first of all, she's a badass. Yeah, she's such a dominant, crazy woman, and she's obsessed by her thing. She's completely, absolutely loyal to that, to her goal. And what is that goal? That goal is getting the evil, getting the source of problems. It could be not like a real goal, but she believes what I mean is not as a real goal. She believes that if she'll catch Hani al-Jabri, all the problems will vanish. Of course, it's not true, but she believes in justice. Yeah, she believes in big ideas. She has ideals, and that's where she and Doron, they have a lot in common, and of course, for bad and for good. And also I wanted to say that besides being such a powerful, dominant woman, you can see more sides of her. And that for me was very important, because I'm not, first of all, an actress. I'm a musician. And when I get a role, it has to be something that I really connect to. And a lot of times I get offers to play that powerful woman, but you see only one side of her. And it's very chauvinistic as I see it, because we're never one-sided, not as males and not as females. So I really love that about it. And also on the set, all the inputs that the director, Rotem Shamir, had were so revealing more and more sides of that character. I felt so safe. I mean, I knew I was coming into the best comeback I could experience after not acting a while. And every moment it felt better and better, as if that role, so many women are going to feel empowered by that Hila Bashan.
That is exactly how my wife felt. Even when Hila went down a dark path, my wife says I'm still in awe of Hila. So
I'm so happy to hear so.
So tell me why you were acting and then you focused on music, your music career, which you continue to do. And oh, by the way, you had a couple kids along the way, but you focused on your music career for 6 or 7 years, and you turned down all acting parts. And then
so originally I'm a musician. That's my soul. That's my motive in life. As I see it, giving a musical part is it's like a small scene. Yeah, every song is a scene, and I was interested in experiencing acting. But then at some point, as a control freak, I felt two things. First of all, I was not controlling everything when I was acting, and still I don't. Yeah, as a musician, I'm writing the songs, I pay the checks to all my friends, musicians. I do everything. And when I act, I can only have this 1 or 2 takes, and then the director and the editor and the writers, they decide everything, and that kind of freaked me out. And the second thing is more like a spiritual reason, that I felt it could bother my spiritual path, my personal development, if I'm trying to be one third of a woman, and then for 14 hours a day I'm saying different words or different feelings, and it could bother. So I believe that now, when I'm more stable and more developed, I'm proud to say for now, and I felt that I just missed it lately. So I went to auditions just to have like a sense of feeling for how it is to act. And also the roles that I got were very stereotyped, as I said before. And here these fellas. I know these great fellas. I know that the huge impact this series had. And I felt it would be my honor to take part. And the role is so, in Hebrew, you say it's a round role. I don't know how you say it in English.
Say it in Hebrew?
Dumut agula. It's
Okay.
round, like it has a...
Yeah. Like a 360 multi-layered,
exactly.
complex.
Exactly.
Before I move to Ala, I just want to ask you, to prepare for this role, you met with Shin Bet officials who somewhat resemble your character?
So thanks to Avi, I had the crazy privilege.
The most connected man in Israel.
Yeah. Connected and lovable. He has like that magical combination.
Oh, please continue.
Yeah, I'll continue for the rest of my life, honey. So yeah, I got the chance to get into the Shin Bet, and I was so surprised. By the way, stereotypes. I met these beautiful, elegant, classy ladies that look like, with flowery dresses, and they look so gentle and so polite. You could never imagine that our life depend on them. And of course, it was all top secret. Also, there was a funny situation in the premiere that they came, and it was so important for me that they would like the role that I am acting because I'm representing them. And I was so happy that they liked it. I was so happy to meet them again. It was quite a relief. And then I said, I want a photo with you. And they told me, but you're not putting it on no Facebook, no Instagram, because, it's going to rule everything in life. I said, oh my God, that's so important. You just said that detail. Because our job is so opposite of discreet.
Right. That would be the beginning of the end. That would have been the end of Avi's great relationships.
Oh my God.
Okay, Ala, let me ask you. So you have had this very interesting acting career in Israel. You are an Israeli Arab who has deep ties with Israel's Jewish community and deep ties with Israel's Arab community. You grew up going to Jewish schools, Hebrew schools. You lived on a kibbutz. You, I think it was during the 2014 Gaza war, maybe later. You had an Israeli Jewish friend who was killed in the Gaza war. You obviously have ties to people on the other side, on the Palestinian side of the conflict. What about that perspective do you bring to this character, to the character of Bashar?
Well, the main thing about the character, the main thing I worked with was the tragedy of the character during the 12 episodes. The thing that I wanted to focus on the most was the break of everything he always knew, the break of his life during the 12 episodes. What is he losing during the 12 episodes? When I saw the last episode, when I read how the character is ending the season, I decided that I want to go in the beginning of the season to take it to to have the biggest tension between the beginning and the end.
Right. So almost go to like the opposite extreme. So
yeah. So
the opening, you wanted to be as innocent as possible.
As the last person who would ever go into this kind of circumstances. Yeah.
And you have said in interviews, a really interesting interview recently in one of the Israeli papers, that every part of your life growing up, you have felt like an outsider, right? When you're in the Israeli Arab community, you kind of feel like an outsider because you have such close ties with Israel's Jewish community. And when you're in Israel's Jewish community, you feel like an outsider because you're an Israeli Arab. That I find that often with actors, they often have this sense of outsiderness. They have to learn how to act in life. Is there something to that?
Well, of course. As a kid, I grew up inside a Jewish community. I grew up inside a Jewish school. It wasn't something my parents wanted to happen. It was some turn of events, like some sort of events, made him to make a decision to live inside of Beersheba instead of going and living outside of Beersheba in the Bedouin villages which are surrounding the whole area. They were working inside the schools, in the Bedouin schools, so they decided to live inside the Jewish community. And that's how I was born inside. I was born into the Jewish community, and my father wanted me to have the best education, so he sent me to the kibbutz, which is 15 minutes drive away. So I grew up in sort of a mixture, because I used to go to my family in the north, my parents' family, which still live in the north, and Arab villages in the north. And my life, which is in Beersheba, which is unconnected almost to this life. So it's kind of a mixture that I have to lie to both sides in order to survive. That's how I have to do.
Avi, these two characters, Hila and Bashar, are fantastic characters. I can't figure out if they're fantastic characters because of what you wrote, what you and Lior and the writing team wrote on the page when you were conceiving of the characters, or it's what these actors have done with these roles. So what is the difference between when you're working on the script and you're developing these characters, and then you see someone in the audition that clicks? Do you say that person fits what we're looking for to a T, or that person doesn't fit like what we look for to a T, but we need to now kind of modify how we're thinking about the character in order to meet this actor where they are?
Well, it's a tough one because sometimes it's like that, sometimes it's like that. I think that in both cases, it was Marina and Bashar. When we saw their auditions, we knew that was them, that was theirs. In a way, it was like a glove to a hand. And the minute that we saw them, we understood that that's it. We've got it. I mean, of course, we saw some other people, but I think that we understood that this is what we were looking for. And I think that, they bring something else to the screen, something unique with Marina and her passion and her, powers. I mean, she's a very powerful woman, and you can see that on the screen. You can see the way that she affects the surroundings, the people around her, starting with Doron, but ending up with Ayub and the others. And of course, Bashar, and of course, Ala was such an amazing person. And for us, he was like the kid on the set. I mean, he was one of the youngest, and he's playing a kid in one way or the other, 18, 19 years old. And he brought this kind of a charm of a very young guy that, everyone are falling for. And everyone just fell in love with Ala. And it's not only him in life, he also brought it to the screen. And I think that the minute that you see Bashar in Fauda third season, you fall for him. You start to feel something very strong for him. It's not only Doron that really likes this guy, but it's the audience that thinks, wow, what a terrific guy. What a nice guy. We really want him to succeed. But then, of course, the events in the show just make this thing go worse and worse and worse. And you don't know what to do with that. I mean, on one hand, you really feel for him. You really want him to succeed. But on the other hand, you understand that he's into something that you wonder if he can go out of the situation.
Lior, I want to ask you about that, because the chemistry between Doron and Bashar is, I mean, it's between Lior and Ala. Like I get the sense, yes, it's acting, but you two truly do kind of adore each other, and there's a real amazing sort of brotherhood or paternal father-son relationship going on there, and the chemistry seems real. How much of that, you have talked in the past by how much of a brotherhood you feel with Rotem, with the director, that you guys are deeply connected. You have said in the past that you feel a real brotherhood with the other actors in the unit, in your unit, and there's a real genuine brotherhood that you can't fake almost. It comes across on the screen. I felt the same way in the first few episodes of season 3 about your relationship with Ala. Was that the same dynamic? Did you guys get close before the cameras were on?
Yeah, first of all, I prefer not father, son, like brothers.
All right, sorry.
Thank you. I will refer to the question.
A young father.
No, a brother, young
right,
brother. I prefer young brother.
All right, fine.
And when I will just refer for the question that you asked Avi about Allah. Allah came to the audition. Before he came to the audition, I talked with his agent, and she told me, listen, I have someone here. When he read when he knew about the role, he already started to train in boxing. We didn't even invite him to the audition. I said, what? He said, yeah. He's going to the end. He's going all over on it. And he actually started to box before we actually called him for audition. Even we considered him as someone who can come for audition. And so I admire this thing in a person, in an actor, that he's just going to the end. He's fighting, and he's a fighter. He's a real fighter. And when I met Allah, I think after the audition, I said, let's have a beer or something like that, right? We went to a Chinese restaurant. I don't remember what was it.
Yeah.
Vietnamic restaurant, and we were sitting there for hours. And I started to understand that, it can sound egoistic, what I would say, but I said, listen, in this role, I have to find the love to this person, because I have to act with him like for hours and days, and this is supposed to be on screen. And I in the beginning, I didn't know how it will happen, but immediately when we connected, it was like we had so much fun, because we had to train every day, boxing. Even that we didn't have to train, we trained. I hit him a lot, and and for me also, because I have experience of fighting, and Allah doesn't have it. He's a nice kid. He's a nice kid who's never fought. And I remember in the boxing lessons, I was there with him in order to make him a fighter, not just a boxer, but a fighter in his mind, that he's not afraid of anything. And he's going, and it was, until now, I just, if I have to choose someone to fight with, I'll take Allah with me.
Yeah.
And if I have someone to choose to have a drink with, I'm going to take Allah with me. So yeah, we became a good friends.
I just want to, Allah, first of all, what's your perspective?
Well, my
Allah pay me later.
Yeah. No problem. Yeah. Just like what Lior said, it was a great connection all the way from the beginning, all the way from the training. I felt like I have a lot to learn from him. It was very fun. The thing that the fighting thing is real. Like I was better at getting along with people instead with fighting with them. So that's how I survived in high school. So I never had in a fight. So being next to Lior got that tension inside of me, and it was really fun. Like I enjoyed boxing very much. I enjoyed getting hit, and I enjoyed hitting. I mean, that was fun.
I've been hit by Lior, and I will tell you, I have not enjoyed that. So you must be either a very strong man or a much better actor than we even knew. We have a bunch of questions.
I think broke your teeth, right?
Yeah, in the shooting, in the first week.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Where?
In the canning, in the
container.
The second, in the container.
Yeah, we had a scene that we're fighting, and I know. I'm sorry.
It wasn't even shot. It wasn't even shot.
What a waste.
It was a rehearsal. Before shooting.
Oh wow. Occupational hazard. I'm going to get into we've got like 125 questions. Obviously, we're not going to get to them all coming in here, but there's one that's just relevant to this we're talking about right now. So I'm going to jump into that one right now from Stephen Kurtz. Says, in the first conversation with Avi and Lior last week, they mentioned the close rapport with the actors on the counter-terrorist unit. That's what I was referring to. How is the rapport between the Arab actors and the Jewish actors in the show? And so I guess the question is not just you and Doron, you and Lior, who developed a close relationship. How was your relationship with the other Jewish actors?
My relation. You talking about my relations?
Yeah.
It was. I mean, I had great relations with all of them. I mean, with Idan, with the Steve, with all the characters. I mean, every day of shooting we had. It's actors. We forget about anything else. We just together inside the shooting, getting it through together, helping each other, watching each other's scenes. I mean, we got into it. I mean, I about a month ago, Amedi has, before the coronavirus, 2 months ago, Amedi had a show in the Barbie, one of the big places that has shows in Israel, in Tel Aviv. 1,000 people in the crowd, and I was in the show, and I came up in the stage with him, and we sang a song together.
I was very jealous when I read that, Ala.
Yeah, it was real fun. It's someone that I knew. It was really fun.
Marina, let me ask you, Allah talked about this sense of being an outsider. You have a different background, obviously, but you were an immigrant to Israel from the former Soviet Union, from a town that is now a part of Ukraine. Yeah. And you came to Israel as a young girl. I assume Russian, or what was your first language when you had just come to Israel?
Russian was my first language, and we probably was like maybe the only Russian family in our neighborhood. I grew up in quite a tough neighborhood, which I really, really loved. And about being an outsider, it's very useful for an artist because you have the space to create your own self, your own bubble. Because when you're connected and when you're part of some group, so maybe you are more about friendships and being with that group or the other group. I feel it's very useful for an artist. So I like it. Until now. I feel Israel is completely my home, though I'm Russian and Ukrainian and Israeli and, a lot of different kind of things. I love that feeling. It's very...
I feel that's common with a lot of Israelis. They're like citizens of Israel. In many respects, they're citizens of like everywhere because there's over 70 nationalities. You have all these people who have connections to all these parts of the world. So for this tiny country, it's...
Yeah, you have the opportunity to connect to something greater.
Yeah. People have multiple identities.
Your close society.
Avi, I'm going to open it up to questions in a couple minutes. 2 quick questions for you. One, there was an article recently that you flagged for me about from some like Hezbollah affiliated news website that was talking about Fauda. What was the gist of this article? What is Hezbollah's fixation with Fauda?
Well, we hear lots of good things about people that watch the show in the Arab world. But of course, there are some people that do not like this show, especially if you consider them more like to the radical side. I mean, and Hezbollah, for them, when they hear about Fauda, and suddenly they understand that Fauda became the most popular TV show in Lebanon, well, according to last week numbers. So they're worried. And then suddenly you see people writing on Twitter, on Instagram, all kinds of stuff that is criticizing Hezbollah and mocking them, meaning making fun of them. Like someone wrote to Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, you were calling to boycott American products, and now the Israeli TV show is the most popular in Lebanon. So maybe, Mr. Nasrallah, no one is listening to you. So we, Fauda, we became part of the political discourse inside Lebanon, it's quite a phenomenon, I must say. So this morning, or last night actually, the official website of Hezbollah published an article saying that Fauda is trying to play with the heads of the people and trying to hide the crimes of the occupation, blah, blah, blah. So it's more or less expected, that the BDS called to boycott Fauda and not to air it. That's fine. But at the end of the day, when we, Leo and I, we look at this, these kinds of reactions from our point of view, you can only wonder how come that they're doing that. I mean, if you were just a Hezbollah supporter and you would open up this kind of letter to the readers of their website saying that this show is trying to play with your heads, don't watch it. What would you do, Dan Senor? The immediate thing is that you would go now to your laptop computer and trying to look for Fauda, right. And what are they doing? And obviously the guy who wrote this article about Fauda, he saw the whole 3 seasons. You can see that. He points to all kinds of developments. So I swear, the guy is totally obsessed with Fauda.
The ultimate expression of flattery. Avi, one more question for you before I take questions from our audience here. Again, I'm going to be careful here not to do too many spoilers, because we told registrants that they should assume we're just under halfway through the season. That's what we'll talk about. So people are around kind of episode 4 or 5. Without saying what ultimately happens to these two young Israelis, the act of the two young Israelis being kidnapped in season 3, just the kidnapping, how much of that was inspired by a true story or by events or characters that you yourself and Lior follow when you're developing a series like this?
So, of course, like many other scenes and lines in our script, it is based more or less upon true stories, or we took some part of a true story here and some part from a true story there, and we combined them together. So, of course, the boxer, for example, Lior had an idea, if I'm not wrong, it was you, Lior, that had an idea about Doron as a kind of a boxing trainer. But then, the boxer is based upon a character that I met in 2003 in Balata, in Askar refugee camp near Nablus, a guy that won the bronze medal in a kind of boxing match somewhere in Europe. And he was just trying to be a boxer. And this is the image that I had in my mind when we were thinking about the boxer. About the two kids, well, of course, it was based upon what happened in 2014, June 2014, with the abduction of the 3 boys, the 3 young Israeli boys that were just the same age, 18, before the army. They weren't soldiers yet. They were after school, after high school. And this is how we were inspired to this story.
All right, I'm going to jump into some of these questions here now. Lior, 2 questions for you. One, about the writing process. How long does it take you guys to actually write? The question is, how long does it take to write an episode, a single episode? And I guess I'll broaden that to maybe if you could just provide a little bit of color about the development process.
Yeah, so first, it's me and Avi. We are building the arc together, and then a chief writer is joining us and working with us. And I think an episode is not. This is not the problem. The problem is to build the arc and to build the process of every character through the show. So we sit together mostly in Avi's house. And I'm eating all his almonds and drinking all his coffee, and we are just arguing, fighting, writing together. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, but we are just like in a kibbutz that works together. I think the first season it took us more than 2 years to write. The second season, I think it took us a year plus, year and a half, something like that. Avi, correct me if I'm wrong. And the third season was a year of writing, since we start writing and to production. And the fourth season, we're writing right now, and I'll tell you in the end how long it took us.
All right. Lior, while I'm with you, Erika Dreyfus writes a very thoughtful question. And I'm just going to read it. She says, I know that we're only able to discuss up through the 4th episode. So, good. First of all, Erica, sorry, not Erika. Erica, thank you for sticking with the no spoiler rule. She says, I'd like to ask a bit about Doron's relationship with his children and the custody situation. Are we to infer that the events at the end of season 2 are what led to his new visitation schedule and to his son's estrangement? His son seems to have grown up quite a lot since last season. Is his trauma from nearly being killed and his mother's reaction to what happened the source of these tensions? A lot there.
Yeah. So first of all, just imagine, I cannot imagine me as a father doing something like this to my son, to draw him into the crazy conflict and to draw him to a situation that he almost got killed in a car accident, and then they hijacking him, and then he see me actually kill someone, and it's crazy. And I would never put my son in this situation. And it's so understood. When we were sitting to write, we said, what's going on there? Where they can go from here? And we decided that they got divorced. And because they got divorced, and the son doesn't want to talk with his father, he doesn't want to talk to him. And I think for Doron, we all the time talking about father figures in our show. And for Doron, one of the main thing that I love about this character, that he loves his kids so much, and he wants to do everything for them, and he will fight for them. And to see him struggling with his son, while you have someone like Bashar on the other side who see him as a father figure, I think this complicity of this character, that's what makes it so interesting for the audience and for me as an actor to play.
I have another question for you, Lior, but I'm going to save it for the last question because it is probably the most important question. So I want to keep people in suspense, but there's a very good question here, and I'll save it for the last one. There's a question here from Marina, and the question is, and you sort of addressed this, that the questioner is asking how do you divide your time between music and acting? And I guess it sounds like you've been focused on music for a while now, but why this question is prompted, I think, is because of your dazzling performance in this series, in this season, you're probably going to start getting a lot more inquiries about acting roles. And so how do you balance all that? Music, acting, kids, a lot going on.
Yeah, the real challenge is between career and being a mother.
Right.
And no doubt that acting in Fauda with these wonderful people completely opened my appetite for more things good as that. And I find it out, I figure it out from a moment to a moment. You know, actually, these coronavirus days really helps the family quality time. So my husband is also a musician, and every week we reschedule and we figure out this day how we make it happen, and the next day, and we invent ourselves on a daily basis, and it's a very interesting juggling, and it's never boring here. But I feel that this is like the real thing for me. I wouldn't want to be just a mother in this circle of life, and I wouldn't want to be just a career woman. So it's fascinating. It's sometimes frustrating, but it gives me the whole, I feel fulfilled when I do all of these things together.
Avi, question for you from Sophia Levin. In the show, we see some competition between Doron's unit and the other counterterrorism unit. Can you describe the real life dynamics between the IDF, the Mossad, the Shin Bet?
It's not really a competition. I think that what Sophia is talking about, it's the Yamam soldiers. So there's some kind of a division here in the missions, meaning there are the guys that are doing the undercover missions, and they are the first ones usually to get to the ground in order to reach to the bad guy or to the house that the bad guy is hiding. And then you have the guys on the uniforms that is getting 1 minute after them. So this is what we were trying to show in episode 3 of the third season, if this is the question.
Question for Ala, and you sort of addressed this before, but how familiar were you with the show? You talked about that, its storylines and its reception before you joined the cast. But then the questioner asks, did you have any anxiety about joining this show?
Of course. That's the biggest show in Israel so far. That's the biggest show that ever made that got so big. And that's the biggest role I've ever got as an actor. So that's 2 jumps in one step. So it was insane for me. So so if I was familiar, I asked myself before I started shooting if I want to watch the first 2 seasons before the shooting or after the shooting. And eventually, I have to admit, I watched the 2 second seasons only after we finished the shooting on the third one.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the first time for me to hear that.
Wow. Have you ever heard that about any other actors doing that? That's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I've got a question here from Deborah Nussbaum-Cohn. who says, Ala, you are fantastic. My young children and I watched season 3 together and fell in love with your character. But here's the big question. What is the picture, Ben Dod, uncle, hanging behind you right now? What is that picture? Just so you all think, Lior's very smart. He puts one of the green screens behind him so people can't peer into his home. But I'll let you bust it. What is that picture?
Well, that's a picture of a movie. That's the biggest role I've ever gotten in the cinema about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a big adventure to me as well. I was nominated for a film awards because of that movie. So it was a big step in my career. So I decided to hang it. Just like another play I played in theater, Beersheba, my city. There's a couple of things. I have a couple of things from Fauda here. I always speak things from everything. I have scripts of everything I've ever done.
No. But say a few words about what does it mean, Habendo, the cousin. What does it mean in Hebrew, and what was the movie about?
Oh, The Cousin is a movie about. The cousin is what the Hebrew is like the Hebrew slang for Palestinian, for an Arab Israeli, the cousin, because in the Bible, our relations is like that. So that movie is about somebody from in the center of Israel who invites a Palestinian worker to fix his home. And on the same day, the Palestinian worker they're accusing him for hurting a young lady, which is called Yara as well. So the story is about me and another girl named Yara, which is insane. And yeah.
I have a lot of questions here. We get this a lot, so I'm just going to ask it because it's clearly on a lot of people's minds. Lior, where were the Gaza scenes filmed? I know you've talked about this before, but there's a lot of interest in this. So if you could just tell us.
Okay. So first of all, I don't want you to see the picture that I have behind me. It's
yeah.
No, but in Gaza, we shot it in 2 places. Actually, the interior we shot in Jaffa, we shot in Kfar Kasem, but the outside we shot in a village called Jisr al-Zarqa. It's in the north between Tel Aviv and Haifa. They have a beach. They own the beach, and as Gaza is, but we didn't have somewhere to. Because Gaza it's so tight and so a crowded place, we didn't have a place like that in Israel. And what happened that the Israeli army actually built a neighborhood inside a base camp in the south of Israel to train, just to train soldiers over there, and they gave it to us, and we were there for a few weeks. It was just like a studio because it's all abandoned. It's nobody's there. You can use everything, masks and stuff like that. But we had to do an amazing artwork over there in order to show it as something that people live in and not just training in. So it was, and a lot of extras, hundreds of extras that came over there.
I want a final question. We're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. Avi, final question, because then I got the big question for Lior. Avi, this is a really interesting question. How has Fauda's transition from an Israeli TV show to a global audience on Netflix changed the way you write and direct the show? So you've said that when you guys first wrote Fauda, you never thought there'd be a season 2. You didn't go into it with that mindset, and never in a million years. I remember you telling me when you were getting the Netflix, that you never in a million years, when Donna Stern called it from Yes and said there's interest from Netflix, you guys were blown away. So you really wrote the first season with the idea that it's only going to be for an Israeli audience. But now you're writing season 2, season 3, season 4, and you know it's going to have this global audience. Does that change the way you and Lior work and write and develop?
Actually, no. I see that there's many questions about season 4, and yes, we are writing right now season 4. But the thing is that even now, after 3 seasons that were aired in Netflix, and after the 3rd season became really a big hit all over the world, it doesn't change our point of view. It doesn't change our writing mentality. Let's put it that way. Meaning, we think, and sorry if I sound so provincial and local, but we think about the Israeli audience. This show was written at the beginning to an Israeli audience, and this is why we're still focusing on it. Meaning, the key to the success of Fauda was the authenticity, the realistic point of view, the feeling that you're almost there. And we wanted to give the Israeli audience this feeling. So we do not think, okay, now we have audience in Brazil and we have audience in the United
Turkey,
States, Turkey, wherever. we cannot. We have to focus on our basic audience, which are the Israelis, and this is what we're aiming for in order to keep Fauda as authentic as possible.
I mentioned Turkey. It's a great answer. I mentioned Turkey because one of the questions is from Turkey, and they say if Lior is going to get invited to go to this Arab country, please also, why don't you guys also come and make a trip to Turkey so you guys can be kind of like goodwill ambassadors. All right, we're going to wrap up here. We got a hard stop.
Just tell this guy that we are a lot in Turkey. We love Turkey. I'm there like every year twice. Next time I will be there.
I'll send you this guy's name and you can track him down. Before we wrap up, two points. The big question for Lior is Lior Raz as tough and brave in real life as Doron? Come clean.
I don't know what to say about it. I don't like to talk about myself as a brave person, but I think I did some stuff in my life, and I was in a places that I don't think that a lot of people can be, but I'm not crazy like Doron. I think I have so many things to lose in order. I don't want to do the things that he's doing, of course, but I think if you want someone to count on, come with me.
Yeah, I could vouch for the fact that he's brave. He's not as crazy as Doron. Doron's pretty crazy. I'd say in real life, Lior is not that crazy. A little crazy, but not that crazy. Before we wrap, we at the end of these shows, since we don't do advertising, we try to promote causes that we all have a connection to. For those of you who are looking for ways to help healthcare workers on the front lines in New York dealing with coronavirus, there's an amazing effort being run by the Jewish Food Society in New York. You can just Google the Jewish Food Society or follow them on Twitter at JFood Society, and they are basically buying tens of thousands of meals in partnership with the Polly Singer Foundation, tens of thousands of meals from a bunch of Jewish and Israeli-connected restaurants in New York, and getting those meals to healthcare workers on the front lines fighting coronavirus. So they're not just eating disaster relief meals, they're eating meals from some of the great restaurants in New York City. So we're putting people to work at restaurants, and we're feeding frontline healthcare workers. If you want to support it, please do. Just go to the Jewish Food Society. Avi and Lior, could one of you just spend a minute talking about the cord?
Okay, the cord. It's a group of people that came from our unit in the army that actually opened houses for kids in Jerusalem who don't have houses. So they built few houses for them to come, to eat, to get dressed, new clothes, social people that come and talk with them, therapists, music lessons. They sleep there, they eat there, food, and we support the cord for a long time. And we would love you to support this amazing charity, because now when we have to stay at home, but there are kids that don't have home. So let's give them home.
So I'll put the link up on this at the end of this for people who want to watch the recorded version whenever we release it. And then I just want to wrap up with you, Marina, not related necessarily to a specific organization, but you have done a lot of work and have wrestled with issues around women's, the perception of women's physical presence in public life. And it's been a tough issue for you, and you've wrestled with it yourself. You've talked about publicly in some of these interviews, and you've also done work to try to help girls have a sort of more multidimensional view of these sorts of issues and stereotypes. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Maybe you can just spend a minute just talking about this issue and why it's important.
So I'll split my minute. And first of all, thank God, I feel there's a lot of figures nowadays that represent the beauty, in all kinds of sizes. As a female, I feel that a lot of women feel much more proud in what they are, and without a need to change or fix themselves. And lately, I have a lot of feelings for the older people and their organizations like Latet, Amcha, and Leket that help them with food or with lonely days or a lot of volunteers that help in many ways what is needed. And the spirit of time, I feel the need to support that. So we'll put these names, if you don't mind, these links as well.
Yeah, so we'll put these links. And Ala, if you have any links to organizations that you want to promote, we will post all of them. I want to, we committed to a hard stop. I want to thank Avi, Marina, Lior, Ala for an amazing conversation. I feel like we could have gone on for hours, especially because we've now crossed the number 200 questions that have come in, and they're still coming in. People are like, no, one more minute. We're going to let you guys go. Hopefully we can reassemble you again in the future. Please follow us. Just Google Fauda Talks. You can see our some previous episodes and future episodes on YouTube. We'll be setting up an audio podcast. You can follow at Issacharoff on Twitter. You can follow at Lior Raz, 1R, on Twitter. And we're going to promote Ala and Lior and Marina and Avi's, all of their Instagram accounts at the end of the show. I just want to say thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks to you guys. It was a great conversation.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dan.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Stay safe and keep washing your hands.
Safe.
Bye.
Thank you.